And I want to bring out my two panelists, Mark Kroese of Microsoft and Christina Shim of IBM. Please come join me. As somebody who has been covering technology as a journalist myself for, I don't know, more than 30 years, and now really pivoting my own career and our work towards climate and sustainability action, it's really exciting for me to have these two people up here representing two of the great leaders of technology industry. And I think it's also really important to have them here together because if we don't figure out new ways of collaborating across industries, within industries, between civil society, business, and government, every possible form of collaboration, we're not going to really be engaging in the kind of systems thinking and systems transition that we know we need and we've been hearing so much about today. So these two companies, of course, they compete in some ways. They work together in other ways. I want to start by asking both of you to just talk a little bit about the sustainability journey that each of your companies are on. And then I want to talk about what that means for your customers. But let's start with you, Christina. Tell us a little bit about IBM. And, well, first of all, tell us your title and exactly what you do.
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Christina Shim. I am the head of strategy and sustainability for IBM's sustainability software business. IBM has been on a really long sustainability journey. We actually published our first environmental report in 1971. So it's been over 50 years where we've been thinking about and supporting on these issues from a corporate perspective. And increasingly realizing that a lot of the products that we were already working across industries on were supporting sustainability goals all along. We just hadn't really characterized them in that way around energy efficiencies and optimization, data center load balancing, supply chain optimization, and transparency. And so pulling that all together now, we realize that a lot of the pain points that our customers were facing were things that IBM had already been dealing with and grappling with for years and years and years. The major challenge that we hear over and over again is that we are struggling with data. We don't know what to do. We have these high-level commitments, net zero just being one of them, but the most vocal one, and we're not sure how to action on that. So how do we think about that? What do we do? And so for us, it's all about data discipline. And that's what we've learned over the course of the many decades that we've been doing this is there are data sources from all around that you need to get a handle on, you need to manage, you need to figure out where you are, what the baseline is, and then where to take that and delta and action in order to achieve where you want to get to. And so where we are now, it's a really exciting part of that journey. I think IBM has, I didn't join that long ago. I joined 9 months ago, and I think one of the reasons was because I was really excited about where we were going and where we were going with the new phase of sustainability software and how we're supporting our customers in that. And so we have the net zero goal as well by 2030. Our goal, similarly, we're diverting non-hazardous waste, 90% of it by weight. We do a lot on the equitable side as well as the ethical side around scaling up and diversity and inclusion as it's related to executive pay and all of these things that I think a lot of the major companies are kind of coming to a consensus around. But I think even more than that, really helping other companies and partners along that journey and learning from what we've been doing over the last 50 plus years has been really inspirational and has been really helpful for the partners that we've been working with. So.
Yeah, and I want to dig down into the role of software in particular in this process. But Mark, tell us exactly what you do. And Microsoft has so many different ways that it's contributing on the sustainability process. Talk about some of the things that you think are most important and what your work is exactly.
Sure. First, and thanks for convening us on this very exciting conversation. I love talking about this stuff. So, Microsoft, so I'm the general manager of our Sustainability Solutions Group. So that's a centralized team inside of Brad Smith, the corporate external legal.
Hey, Brad Smith, we love Brad Smith.
Yeah, we do love Brad. And we work across the entire company, so across all the business groups, Azure, Microsoft 365, Surface, Xbox, real estate, facilities, the entire company on carbon commitments and ways that we can help our customers and help the world. Our sustainability journey really goes back to 2009. We set our first environmental commitment then. We were carbon neutral by 2012, but that was through avoiding emissions offsets. And then we just kept getting better and better. And then it was really during the Trump administration that when we pulled out of the Paris Agreement, I think a lot of the private sector stood up and said, wow, this is really messed up. Like, we have to really start to behave more like governments and really step up our ambition. In 2020, we launched, in the spirit of a software company, in 4 sprints, we launched 4 tentpole commitments. The first is to be carbon negative by 2030. And then
What does that mean to be carbon negative?
So that means, there's 2 verbs, reduce, right? Reduce our scope 3 emissions by 60%, durably remove the rest, but a little bit more than the rest every year. So by 2050, we will actually erase all of the historic emissions the company's ever had since 1975. So from a greenhouse gas perspective, it'll be as if we never existed. So that was the first commitment. The second was to be water positive, to make sure every place that we have a data center, everywhere that we work, that we do not become that company that makes water more scarce and more expensive. So to replenish more water than we use. The third is to be a zero waste company. So particularly for us, it's about e-waste. So we have 5 circular centers in the world that are sort of regional hubs for all our data centers. So we have humans picking through and making sure every bit of server racks and components is sorted, reused, recycled, but not thrown away. So and then the fourth is to protect ecosystems. So and I'll tell you more about this cool thing we're doing called the planetary computer, which is really this spatiotemporal geosensing planetary insights platform. So those were the 4 commitments we made. And we have an operations team that is hard at work on doing that. When you do the math, though, you say, okay, that's great, Microsoft. You're going to take care of your environmental footprint and then some. But you also, when you do the math, we are 0.03% of global emissions. So what are we going to do about the other 99.97? So the first concentric ring is Microsoft sustainability, which I just talked about. The next concentric ring is customer and partner sustainability. So in our journey, our own journey, we've learned a lot. And we've built a lot of tech. So let's commercialize that and productize it and make sure that is available to our customers. So we, last June, went generally available with the Microsoft Cloud for sustainability. So that is a whole suite of software and services for helping companies become more sustainable. And then we have a whole bunch of initiatives for like helping the world, trying to accelerate carbon markets, improve fluency and sustainability skilling through LinkedIn, this type of thing. We have in accelerating carbon markets, we have a $1 billion climate innovation fund, which is investing in climate tech, trying to move green premiums down as fast as possible. So we're really operating in 3 different spheres there.
It's really, really impressive. And I know one of the things you're very committed to is carbon removal and
Yes.
investing even before the technology is really there to try to help that technology come along. But I want to talk about software. So this is your business in both cases. I don't think the world yet appreciates how much software is going to be the way that and of course, connectivity, as we were talking about with Heather Johnson of Ericsson earlier. But once you're connected and you got software, you got to use it in some very creative new ways. So Christina, talk a little bit about how IBM is thinking about that.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Look, at the end of the day, most companies are still using spreadsheets to figure out what their footprint is. And that's not going to move the needle, right? It's a great effort, but we have the technology at hand. We have AI, we have blockchain technology, we have the technology to be able to help support accelerating where we are in the journey, and that's what we need to do. We made an acquisition actually earlier this year in January of a company called Invisi, and they are all about ESG data management, insights, analytics, and reporting. And why that's so powerful as it's related to the suite of other products that we have is because it allows for this automation, this integration of kind of real-time data and process flows of that data to pull it in, make sense of it, and then actually action on it, right? Going back to what the challenges that people are facing, what enterprises are facing. So Fortune 50 companies that we speak to on a weekly basis. I mean, Mark and I talked about this, still using spreadsheets to figure it out. There's no way that, and this has come up in a couple of the sessions today, we need to move faster. There's only so much time that we have to make the difference that we need to make. And in order to do that, technology needs to be leveraged to move us faster and accelerate us in that journey. And so software, I mean, a lot of these products and platforms already exist. Large companies like ours are investing more and more to make sure that they're getting into the hands of different enterprises, nonprofits, multi-lives, governments, everyone, like you mentioned, across sectors, across industries, to make sure that we're having the impact that we can have. And the adoption hasn't been as fast as I think it should be, but hopefully that's changing. And I think as we are hopefully raising more awareness of what that can and should do towards our climate goals. And when I say climate goals, by the way, I don't just mean carbon emissions and net zero, right? I mean climate goals, climate equity, climate justice, understanding transparency, traceability in our supply chains. These are things that are critical for the resilience of businesses for many generations to come. And we need to make sure that we're leveraging software to help us do that.
Are we getting to a point where where companies will essentially have a live, real-time dashboard of their emissions? Is that the world we're heading towards?
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, both of you think so? Okay, what do you think?
Yeah, the role of software is huge. You know, when you live in a technology company, you have to realize when we have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And certainly the climate crisis we're in has a lot of components to it, but technology certainly plays an important role. Just the move from on-prem to cloud is like the best decision any company can make, and the benefits are somewhere between 20 and 80% better, right?
In terms of emissions per se?
In terms of emissions, just because
Just letting somebody else do it is more efficient because you can do it at scale,
Yeah.
more effectively, et cetera?
Right, so just making that decision to anybody's cloud, forgetting the benchmarking between clouds, right?
But we'll say they all go to Salesforce then, okay? Yeah, let's go. Just kidding.
Everyone's doing great. The things that I hear about most from our customers in terms of software, what we can help with, and it can help with a lot of things, as Christina was saying, AI is measurement and planetary insights. So in terms of measurement, it is carbon accounting. It is scope 1, 2, and 3, and like the Cloud for Sustainability is designed, it's called the Microsoft Sustainability Manager as part of the Cloud for Sustainability umbrella. It is designed to do exactly that, is to measure scope 1, 2, and 3 and help you get to the data. So data connectors, common data model, data formats, all of that. It's a very horizontal problem, actually. It's not quite an industry vertical because all customers have the same problem. And when I'm in our executive briefing center 3 days a week, it's always about help us with scope 3 because that's the real bugaboo. And really, if you get everyone to figure out their scope 1, because my scope 3 is someone else's scope 1, right? If you get everyone to figure that out, that's important.
Scope 3, just for everybody, is the kind of thing Heather Johnson was talking about, the use of Ericsson's products in the marketplace, or for any company, the use of the things you produce, the impact you have outside of your own company.
Right, purchase goods and services. So all the chips we buy for our data centers are part of our scope 3, right?
So the supply and the output, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then the second thing is just planetary insights. I think the era that we're in is so exciting because think about it, there's this necklace of satellites around the Earth, right? There are
interesting phrase. Okay.
There's everywhere. Just in all this environmental sensing data, right? There is millions of IoT sensors and everything from coral reefs to rainforests, just everywhere, right? And all of that data needs a place to land and be overlaid and reasoned over, and really to measure and monitor the health of the world's ecosystem. It's really the beating heart of this world through this whole new class of spatio-temporal data, which has been distributed, traditionally very distributed and siloed. So as a platform company, we see a role to sort of bring it all together in one place. We're talking, exabytes of data.
I don't know if you heard me say when I was talking to Heather about the instrumented society, but that's really what you're talking about, that the more we can measure, monitor, and adapt using data, everything that we do, the more we're going to be able to really move towards sustainability. Christina, I wanted to ask you about, historically, so much of even companies that have been trying to do it without spreadsheets, they've been just using estimates and models. How are we doing getting away from estimates and models towards real measurement of what companies are actually doing?
Yeah, so a lot of the platforms now, including our products, have real data connectors, as Mark mentioned, to the actual data. So those connectors are tied in with, let's say, the utility bills of buildings, of energy efficient footprint, how things are being run with data centers, what's exactly happening within the network of your supply chain. These are all real-time data points that are then integrated into that dashboard that you mentioned. If you could have a dashboard that shows you everything, and for us that dashboard is in Visi, then you are able to pull that all together real-time and get insights from that. And that's real data, right? That's actual data. This is not like we're going to estimate the size of this building and the approximate number of people. This is, we're showing that you're not using this room, you're turning this air conditioner on and off at the wrong times. I mean, very real-time, actionable decisions that can be made on a day-to-day basis that are intelligent, and so they help you manage, and you extrapolate that over the countries and the sites that you're in. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think most people may not realize, and from talking to both of you, both companies have relationships with companies like Honeywell, Johnson Controls, the companies that are building the systems that manage all of the buildings in every city, and you're building connectors into your software in both companies to really suck that in and use it.
That's right. I mean, if you think of like today, the distinction I think we're making here is between real-time activity data and post-facto spend data, right? So when we get an estimate for $1 million worth of HVAC for our buildings, right, that goes to finance and procurement, who then applies some industry average to that. Well, $1 million of spend, they don't know how green the grid was. They don't know. It doesn't know anything. It's just an industry average, right? Versus making sure that that HVAC system in that building is pumping activity data straight to the cloud. And that, of course, requires that there's a place to land where we can have all the predictive analytics like Invisi and the cloud for sustainability, but it has to have a place to come from, right? The source data needs to be connected. And that's the challenge, and that's the goal of a platform provider, is to make those connections and that whole ecosystem all work.
I want to ask you both, here we have two of the giant software companies and technology companies of the world. How can companies like yours work together more? And does the industry have a sense of a mandate as, including, Oracle, Salesforce, all these companies? Is there any kind of collective momentum where you are able to work together better than you did in the past, or do you believe that needs to happen, either one of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I think, so our current CEO, Arvind, is a huge proponent of, yes, of course, we're competitors with basically everybody in the tech space, but we're also partners in crime in all of this. And so the strategy and the vision of us working more closely, not just with Microsoft, but I'm sure many of your companies out here, is alive and well. And it's not just around sustainability, but I think that sustainability, there's a certain, I don't know, it's a theme that most people can get behind, right? There's a lot of kind of, we're doing this for something that's bigger than just the next quarterly return or the next quarterly earnings. This is something that's bigger than just us and just our business. And in order to do that and have the impact, we need to all be working together. So yeah, I think that there's something with sustainability that really encourages that.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's also, I think, increased appetite by the most senior leaders of the companies to also be working more closely in hand. And that's across, I mean, when we're talking about for IBM, quantum, AI, automation, I mean, across all of these security, that's happening across the space. And sustainability, it's only, I think, furthering or accelerating that.
Nothing like a crisis to
bring people
give
together.
people incentive. What do you think about that?
I mean, there's a lot of places to compete in the world. Sustainability standards and formats is not one of them, right? So in February, we worked with the Climate Works Foundation to launch this thing called the Carbon Call, which was modeled after these other sort of big impact, the Christchurch Call and the Paris Call. But the Carbon Call really was to convene the industry, and we turned it over to the Climate Works Foundation. I just came back from a meeting in Midtown Manhattan. So the discussion in that room is all about carbon accounting standards and formats and methodologies.
Which are still very much all over the map and not sufficiently standardized.
Yeah, we're not at gap accounting for carbon yet.
You
right?
think we'll get there?
We have to, and we have to do it soon.
Give me a time frame. How soon could we get to that kind of a truly gap-like carbon accounting ecosystem?
5 years max.
5 years.
Yeah. I was just in the room, so I got a little bit of but they're moving fast, and we've got all the right people, right? And there'll just be more and more signatories to these efforts, and they will be industry initiatives that everyone benefits from, and hopefully no one directly profits from.
Great.
If I could just add on to that. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, there is actually an effort by George Serafim at Harvard Business School and Sir Ronald Cohen exactly around that. It's called the Impact-Weighted Accounting Initiative. And the idea is we will not be able to move the needle until impact, however you define impact, is incorporated into our gap accounting methodology somehow. Because the only way that there's going to be accountability is by incorporating that as part of our financials and reports. So it's in the works. And your timeline question is a good one. I also think that it's going to happen very quickly, but probably not as quickly as it needs to, because you're bucking the entire system here, right? So there's going to be a lot of resistance
I mean,
to it.
neither of you are the CFO people, but you know, the SEC is starting to require
Correct.
companies to report on emissions and sustainable measurements. Is that a step towards what you just described, would you say?
It's a step.
It's a small step.
Certainly a forcing function, right?
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's just another reason that the companies that I meet with are just sort of raising their hands saying, can you help us?
Right.
Because we've got regulatory pressures, we've got customer pressures, we've got employee pressures. There's pressure coming in every direction.
Wow. The bell has rung. This is a great conversation. We will continue it with both of your companies I've been writing about and thinking about for decades, and I hope to continue. And it's much more enjoyable when you're really working on this climate and sustainability stuff, because the internet itself is getting boring to me, but climate is what matters. So thank you so much for having both being here and all the great work you're doing.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Let's take a picture
Thank you
now.
so much. Yeah,
I want to take a picture of us.